Hey guys, hope you enjoyed our last episode with Marianne Deswart. Did it leave you wanting to just get better every day? I love that mindset and that self-motivation, but sometimes you actually need to rest. That is also a part of getting better. I think as athletes, we're pretty used to the hustle, to working hard, not stopping, that it can seem kind of daunting to just chill out. I know that if I get sick or injured, I am the worst patient. I don't like to sit still. I like to be busy. But sometimes your body speaks to you and it's telling you to chill. Especially this time of the year, I feel like everyone is sick and there is a nasty flu out there that is knocking people out. You may need to spend the day in bed just to get better. So don't beat yourself up if you end up doing nothing. That's okay. What's important is the intention behind it, right? Are you doing nothing because you need to in order to get better, or are you avoiding or procrastinating? Today, we welcome Dominique Lemperle, who is like you, enjoying listening to Vida Tennis. We were talking about that, and naturally, we started talking about racket sports and, of course, pickleball. It is funny because I have just what I would call a love-hate relationship with pickleball. And I think a lot of us do, to be honest. But we just won't publicly talk about it. And I know we do because a lot of times I will talk to even our own guests here, and they will get candid with me about pickleball only when the record button goes off. And I understand why. You don't want to come off as a hater. You don't want to put a sport down. It's also a part of your job. So I get it. I am on the same page. It doesn't mean I don't enjoy pickleball, but we can't just ignore certain things about the sport that are either upsetting or concerning. I get concerned because it is a sport that does continue to impose on tennis courts. Are we supposed to ignore the fact that public tennis courts keep disappearing and getting replaced by pickleball courts? Are we okay with tennis becoming a sport you can only or even mostly play at clubs? And what everyone tells me is that tennis players need to do what pickleball players are doing. We need to get together and go to town halls and talk to the city, which is, I guess, what pickleball players do. I don't know. I'm sorry, but I have reached out to the city many times and they can be so dysfunctional. They won't answer you, or just pass your email to someone else and then that person won't answer you. At least that's been my experience. So I'm not sure what we're to do. I also don't necessarily buy into this whole everyone should be a rackets professional thing. I think you can absolutely be a tennis coach who only coaches tennis and have a successful lifelong career. Look, many coaches still coach tennis on a full-time basis and do not need to or have an ounce of interest in teaching pickleball or another racket sport. And I don't think those coaches should be looked down on. I also think it's important to maintain tennis-specific organizations, clubs, businesses. Look, it's no secret, I'm not a huge fan of the USPTA, right? Switching their name to RSPA. Look, switching your name can be a sign of growth, but sometimes it can also be a sign of failure. And I think, unfortunately, in this case, it's the latter. And I have my own reasons for thinking that. And I know a lot of people will agree with me and a lot of people will disagree with me. And it's all right. We can still be friends. What is also concerning is the noise issue. Look, it doesn't bother me personally, but just because it doesn't bother me, it doesn't mean that everyone else is crazy for being bothered by it or that they're just being a bunch of babies. Or does it? So I asked Dominique to address some of these hot topics because I thought she would be the perfect guest to ask these questions to. I know we have different perspectives, and she handled it like the pro that she is. And I appreciate her being willing to go there. We may not have all the answers to these yet, but I do think it is important to keep the conversation going. We can't just sweep things under the rug and expect progress. Now, can we? And I also got to play padel with Dominique, and she's so freaking good. By the way, if you are in Sarasota, make sure to check out the Pad. It's a club that is indoors. It's in a warehouse, and they have paddle or padel only. And it's so fun. That's where we played. And I just love what they're doing. Also, if you want to support the podcast, please make sure to share this with your peers. You can find out more about all things Vida Tennis at vidatennispodcast.com. Get ready to hear from one of the best out there, only here at Vida Tennis. Enjoy. Welcome to Vida Tennis, the podcast for those of us who eat, sleep, breathe tennis. I'm your host, Jennifer Gelhaus, and today we welcome Dominique Lemperle to the podcast. Dominique is an unstoppable leader in the rackets world. She's a triple threat in rackets as she coaches and competes in tennis, pickleball, and padel. She started as a statistician and graphics specialist in the TV industry for about 10 years, representing IBM at all 4 Grand Slams. For the last decade, though, she has been in the rackets industry as head tennis and pickleball professional at clubs like Bonita Bay Club, Esplanade Golf and Country Club, and most recently, the Pickleball Club. She serves as an advisor on the National Pickleball Task Force for RSPA. She will also be a speaker at the Racquet X conference in Miami this March. She is originally from Germany and graduated from the University of Colorado Boulder. She recently represented Team USA at the Pan American Padel Championships in Argentina. Welcome, Dominique, to Vida Tennis. How are you today?
Jennifer, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Absolutely. It's our honor. How do you say your last name? I meant to ask you that.
Lemperle.
Lemperle. Okay. I was like, oh.
It looks French, but it is German. My family checked. It's actually German.
Gotcha. All right. I'm excited to talk to you today and learn about your career. And obviously, we're going to have to get into some hot topics in the pickleball world. But let's start at the beginning. So you were in the TV industry for 10 years, right? So was coaching something that was in your mind all along? How did you end up switching careers?
Yes. So the TV industry was something that I fell into. I studied print journalism at the University of Colorado and got my master's in print journalism and my undergrad degree in broadcast news. After that, I didn't really think I would ever want to be on TV or in the TV industry, but life led me back to that industry. And I actually really, truly enjoyed being in the TV world. I met so many amazing broadcasters like John McEnroe, Mary Carrillo, Patrick McEnroe. I would never have dreamed of being in the same room with them. So I really learned a lot about coaching just by listening to their commentary and watching them commentate on air, giving them notes, giving them stats, and watching them use these stats on air. And I learned so much, and that developed my tennis IQ, listening to them and spending time with them. And that actually set me up for my coaching career.
So when did you start coaching?
I got my USPTA certification in 2013 and then became an elite professional. And so I've been in the coaching industry since 2013 and started as an assistant pro in Jacksonville, Florida. Was then recruited to be head pro at Bonita Bay Club. Worked under Paula Shebb. She's a master professional, and I learned so much from her just about how to run a platinum club, programming wise. She's so creative. And then I was put in charge of a 5-court pickleball program. So they built 5 brand new pickleball courts. I believe it was in 2019, 2018. And Paula asked me, would you be interested in running this program? I had played a little bit of pickleball. I learned from the older people who were already experts at pickleball. They taught me, and I just said, yes, I'll do it. And actually enjoyed it. I enjoyed pickleball. And then she said, I think you can do this. Why don't you become the director of this new pickleball program that we're starting? I said, sure. And started playing tournaments, played the US Open in Naples. And it really was an easy transition. First, it wasn't so easy because, as you know, not a lot of tennis players immediately like pickleball or don't like pickleball at all. And I faced a lot of adversity with that at first, trying to grow the program. But I started to get the golfers involved and started to reach out to other parts of the club, the fitness director as well. And slowly but surely, the program started growing. And in year 2, we had a 250% growth of participation. And now I think they have 10 pickleball courts. And as you know, the pickleball industry is booming. And I was in the right place at the right time at Bonita Bay Club, and it took off from there.
So how long ago was this? Because I feel like today, I would say a lot of tennis players do like pickleball. It's an easy transition, right? If you already play tennis. So how long ago we're talking about?
That was just before COVID, 2018. I think COVID really made pickleball grow immensely. So it was just before COVID hit that pickleball was still, especially in a club where tennis is such a big program. Bonita Bay Club has a huge tennis program. So bringing in a new sport like pickleball, which isn't necessarily considered a country club sport, it's considered a park sport that was brought into a very high-end club. And because of the noise issues, and it's loud, relatively loud compared to tennis, it wasn't received well immediately. And there were a lot of concerns from tennis players because the courts were built right next to the pickleball courts were built right next to the tennis courts. And they did think about the noise, and they put plants and bushes that would try to dampen the noise. And there was also the golf course right next to it. So they were very aware that the noise issues might eventually be an issue. But it turned out to be fine. They did a lot of precautionary measures and thought about silent equipment, silent balls, but it didn't end up being a hindrance, and the program grew.
That's fantastic. So now you've been in the rackets industry for close to a decade, probably. Right. What do you like about being in the rackets industry?
You know, I believe that I was put on this earth to play a racket sport. So I believe that I'm here to follow my passion, which is to either play tennis, pickleball, padel, you name it, maybe squash one day, maybe racquetball one day. I think that's my purpose here, to spread the joy of racket sports, to play it, to teach it, and to help grow it in the world and right now in the United States. I think you're supposed to do in life what your passion is, to be happy. And that's my passion. And I feel lucky to have found that so early in life. And I've followed that my whole life. I never considered really getting a job outside of the tennis industry or rackets industry.
Can you talk about maybe a major lesson that you have learned along the way in the rackets industry so far?
Yes. So number one, for any up and coming professionals, it's very important when you get your first job that you stay extremely humble and show respect, and don't think that you know it all. Just be quiet, listen, and learn from master professionals, from people who've been in the industry longer than you, because it sets you up for success down the road. Even though you think, oh, I've watched videos on YouTube. I'm already an expert. Just hold your horses. Join a network like the Directors Club of America with Jared. Join USPTA, which is now RSPA. Join networks and allow people to help you, and give back right away. Give back early on. Help your boss. The best thing you can do is ask your boss, how can I help you? What are you struggling with? And then that will set you up. Early in my career, I did not do that because I thought, well, I got to prove that I know everything. And that was not the right thing to do. So if I had to do it all over again, I would sit back a minute, wait a little bit, and be more of a team player early on, rather than trying to outshine everyone by myself.
That's like the best advice I ever heard. That's amazing. Yes. I mean, you should always put yourself in a situation where you are helpful, especially helpful to your director. They will value you so much if
Right.
you just go out of your way to be a team player, to make their life easier. That's what you're there to do at the end of the day, right? Did you get started at a platinum club right away when you started coaching, or were you coaching any competitive players, juniors, or anything like that?
No, I got started right away. It's actually an industry connection that helped me get that job. It was Trish Faulkner from RSPA. She is the RSPA president, and she has been an incredible help for me, an incredible connection. I was an assistant pro at Deerwood Country Club in Jacksonville, and I was looking to move and to become a head pro. And I emailed her and said, do you know anyone looking for a head pro job? And she connected me with Paula at Bonita Bay. And then I was very fortunate to be put in that situation. And she invited me for an interview. We played tennis. She put me in touch with some members, and it was a one-day interview, and we had a really good connection. And then luckily, I got that job in Bonita Bay, and my career took off from there.
Meant to be, right? And it's funny because when I first got in the industry, I didn't know what a platinum club was. I never heard of that. That was until I got this job in the Hamptons at a club called Maidstone, and that is a platinum club. And that's the first time I ever heard of that. I was like, what is this? Is this important? Do you think that that's important to a tennis professional, to a rackets professional in their career?
It's funny that you say that, because I didn't even know it was a platinum club. Trish told me, this is an incredible opportunity. Paula is an industry giant. Just do it. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And yes, I think being at a platinum club right away was a huge blessing, because I learned member service at its finest. I learned how to hold top-notch events. I learned the best. I was in the best environment, and so that set me up for success. And I knew what it would take to be a director at that level too. So I learned court maintenance. Can't forget that. There was the court maintenance guy. Jamie was an absolute, probably one of the best in the industry. He's also an expert stringer, and he taught me. I took like a mini internship from him on court maintenance, clay court maintenance, and hard court maintenance, which is not as intensive. But I wrote a little manual on clay court maintenance, like a 15-page little manual, and learned so much from him. And and his team.
Yeah, it's clay courts. I've learned a lot about that too, just through being in the industry. And especially as a director, of course, you have to be on top of so many different things. It can be tricky, especially if you're at a seasonal club, because they will usually close those courts for the rest of the year and reopen between April and May, basically. They have to add clay, put maybe new lines on. And it's the surface, even if it's a brand new court, it can be so different from one year to the next. And always at the beginning of the season, the courts are like so soft, especially hydro courts, because they just haven't been played on. And there's so much to learn about court maintenance. That's like an art by itself.
Yes.
So I want to see this manual that you made. I want to talk to you about pickleball, right? Let's dig into some of the hot topics a little bit more. You are so funny. When we talked, you were like, well, I really like your podcast, and I know you probably don't like pickleball. And I was like, no. I don't mind pickleball at all. I actually play pickleball. I've done pickleball lessons. I run a pickleball program. Like, I have nothing against the sport. I actually enjoy it. But I do have certain things that kind of irk me, some little issues. So then I went to the short version of my usual rant with you. So I'm counting on you to provide some useful information and maybe a different perspective regarding some of these pickleball stuff. Is that okay with you?
Of course. Let's go right into it.
All right, great. Okay, so I really want to hear your thoughts and have this conversation because I think you're amazing. And I think we may have some different thoughts, which is absolutely fine. So I love it. What do you think about the quick rise in pickleball as a business, right? So it seems like everyone is trying to monetize and kind of take advantage of the fact that it's such a fast growing sport. Is growing fast beneficial? Do you think there's any drawbacks to it?
Well, pickleball has grown incredibly fast, especially during COVID. I think the fast growth is an advantage in so many things, especially on the marketing side. They have done an incredibly good job, the pickleball industry, marketing themselves on social media, holding tournaments all the time. I mean, one of the big differences between pickleball and tennis is how easily you can find tournaments in your area and how quickly you can find partners who want to play with you in those. I mean, I would do the same in tennis if it was that easy to find partners. Honestly, I would play tennis tournaments the same as I would play pickleball tournaments. Yeah. They know they are so excited about their sport that it has taken off like a rocket ship. And I think other industries can learn from that, especially tennis. They don't stop. They just don't stop. They don't mind being confrontational, which is good and bad. You get some bad video clips of annoying pickleball players, but they don't care about that. They love their pickleball and they keep going. And they monetize it through tournaments, through gear, yes, there are some controversial issues with the paddles right now and with the governing bodies, and they could learn from other sports like tennis. Tennis is better in the way that they have the USTA, which has one major Grand Slam, and they make a lot of money from the US Open. The USTA makes a lot of money from the US Open. Good for them. USA Pickleball makes, I believe, zero money from the US Open because it's not even a sanctioned sport. It's not even a sanctioned tournament. So a private company owns the US Open Pickleball and they make all the money. So, that's something they need to figure out to help the growth of pickleball. Pickleball is not in the Olympics yet, because there are too many bodies in charge who want to make money, who want to get a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
And until they have figured that out, they're not going to grow enough as a sport and become an Olympic sport. So fast growth is good and bad in that regard.
There's certainly certain growing pains, I guess you might call it, right? Because it has grown so fast and everyone kind of wants to jump in and invest in it. And a lot of things haven't been yet figured out. So like even on the business side of, like I was reading about the club where you are in Sarasota, right? Like they have multiple facilities, right? And it's like, how about we just get one facility, grow it, explode it, and then maybe build a second. And then maybe build a third and grow that one, then maybe build a third. Instead of like growing so many when there's no proof of concept yet. I mean, there is in tennis, but it's not the same sport. The culture is different. The rules are different. The governing bodies are different, like you were saying. So it's interesting that some of the growing pains, but it's definitely a sport that's exploded in the US. And I think that's really interesting. Another thing that I really like that you just mentioned was the whole thing with match play. I don't know what it is about tennis that people get so stressed about playing a match, maybe because it's longer and pickleball is shorter. What do you think?
So actually, it's funny that you say that because I find a tennis match more relaxing than a pickleball match. I find a pickleball match at the pro level extremely stressful. It's very, very stressful. Because you're so close. Players like to scream after they win a point, and they're 14 feet away, and they scream loudly. The referee is right there yelling out the score. The fans are so close, yelling. I find it extremely stressful. Plus, the margin of error is so slim. If you just pop up a dink a little bit too high, you get it crushed in your face. I find it tennis, you have so much more time between points. You have time to breathe. You're further away from your opponent. I played tennis yesterday and I felt, oh my gosh, I have so much time between points, which is nice. It's almost relaxing to play tennis. Granted, I didn't play tennis at the pro level. That would be a completely different story. If I played in the Australian Open, I would probably be off the court really fast and be on the losing end and also feel stressed. But a lot of people underestimate pickleball by what they see from their community courts. Really, what you have to consider is a pro level match and how much stress goes into that and how much drilling goes into that prior.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look at the best tennis players who have recently gone into pickleball, Jack Sock, Jeannie Bouchard, Sam Querrey, and John Isner, they're not doing so well in pickleball. And one former tennis player who is doing really well in pickleball is Andre Deescu. He wasn't on the level as Jeannie Bouchard or Jack Sock, but he is taking pickleball really seriously and he's drilling hours every day. And that's what pickleball needs, is you really need to commit a lot of time on grinding it out in practice to get to do well at that pro level. And I think a lot of tennis players and casual fans maybe don't see that, don't understand that. And that's why they say, oh, pickleball is so easy. It's really not at the top level. At the lower level, yes, it's very easy, but it's easy to learn, but extremely hard to master.
It depends on your competition, just like in any sport, right? It's like, well, who are you playing against? I've never drilled, I've never gone out and like just done drills for pickleball, but I find that like that third shot is like, oh my gosh, if you can figure out how to hit a dink from the baseline, then you're golden, then you're set. Do you have any advice for the third shot?
Sure. First of all, if you and I went out on the court and I showed you a few things on how to hit that correctly, and we drilled for 2 hours, you would make a significant improvement right away because you're a high-level tennis player. You just have to get used to the paddle and the ball, and I can show you how to fix that quickly. So it's really getting used to absorbing the ball and hitting it in the sweet spot, and having the right paddle for you makes a huge difference to make you like the sport more. For the third shot drop, the key with that is you have to make your trajectory. The peak of the ball has to be over your non-volley zone. So it's better if I show you on the court, but a lot of players don't aim high enough, and that's why they miss in the net. So you have to make sure the trajectory of your third shot drop is higher, so it peaks over your non-volley zone and then drops into the other kitchen. So it's a shallow drop. And once you have that down, it's like a free throw in basketball. I mean, you just have to make it over and over and over, and then you would master that too.
Yeah, I understand the concept. To me, it's like it's just a mental thing because you start aiming high and then you're afraid that you're just setting up the players that are behind the kitchen line ready to drill you with that ball. So it's definitely mental.
Yeah.
It's so tough. I think that's the toughest part of
Right.
the shot. But okay, so my main and probably only bone to really pick with pickleball is the whole tennis court conversion thing, right? So like it kills me to see public tennis courts disappear and be turned into pickleball courts. It just does. Do you see a way in which tennis and pickleball can coexist in the public space? I understand the club world is a totally different thing because that's about the members and what the membership wants, and you have your board and your committees, and that's a different world. But I'm talking about more in the public space. Do you think the two sports could even collaborate? Because I really think the friction between the two sports really comes down to this.
I hear your point. The pickleball players are taking tennis courts to build their own courts, and but they are allowed to do it. I mean, basically what it comes down to is the owner of the facility says, well, my tennis courts are empty in the afternoon. I would like to make some more money and I would like to fill my courts and make money for my facility. And the pickleball players say, okay, we'll fill your courts, no problem. Let us build pickleball courts. And they do fill the courts at most hours of the day, especially in the morning and in the evening hours, more than tennis players do. And so it goes, that's why they're allowed to take those courts, because the tennis facility owners let them. Right now, a lot of indoor facilities are being built. So the pickleball facilities, the pickleball players and owners are spending their own money now to build their own facilities and are coupling them now with padel, which is another growing alternative racket sport. I would love to see a facility that has all three: tennis, pickleball, and padel, all in one facility. That would be my dream. So I can play all three in one day, but also so we can help players play all three sports That would be my dream, and I hope we see more of that.
In the public space, I'm sure it's tougher because, they cost money. And I think the reason, and again, going just to the public space, right? So there's not one particular owner, like the city owns those. And it's more like certain pickleball advocates showing up to town halls and getting these tennis courts converted into pickleball. And sometimes they are like abandoned old tennis courts that nobody wants to play on. But it's not always the case. Like, at least here in Tampa, at least in my world, from my perspective, the places that I've seen are usually places that do get used quite a bit. They're not necessarily like abandoned old courts that nobody wants to play on, but they still, get converted to pickleball. And so it kind of leaves the tennis players out and looking for other places to play at. So I find that's the thing that I'm like, we need to figure out a way in which we can have both. And there's even a place here really close to my house. It used to be 6 public courts. And then they took 3 courts to turn into pickleball. And then they had, I think, the 6 pickleball courts, I believe, on those all 3 tennis courts. And then they had the other 3 tennis courts. And now the whole facility, it's all pickleball. So that's, at least, again, in my city, in my small world here in Tampa, Florida, right, that I'm seeing. But it does kind of worry me because I'm like, well, what's going to happen with tennis? Is it just going to be reserved for country clubs and places where you have to pay for a membership because, like, the courts are disappearing? So that's really like my main issue, I guess.
Yeah, there needs to be something done about that. Tennis players need to show up at these city council meetings and say, no, don't convert our courts into pickleball courts. But they need to show up and make a point. And they need to show data. They need to start. Why don't they start something like tennistournaments.com? There's pickleballbrackets.com, which it's so easy to find a tournament on my local courts next weekend. Why doesn't a tennis player start tennistournaments.com and put on tennis tournaments all the time? Then there wouldn't even be a question that these tennis courts should disappear. And come up with a shorter format, maybe fast 4. Do fast 4 tennis tournaments. That can be played in one afternoon, and start a fast 4 tennis tour. And there you go. Now we need more tennis courts.
Yeah.
Be a huge advocate for that.
Yeah, I hear you. And then another hot topic that we kind of touched on at the beginning is the noise, right? So while the noise is not something that necessarily bothers me, probably because I'm used to hearing a tennis ball all day, we can't ignore the fact that there's so many noise complaints and even lawsuits regarding the noise level in pickleball. Do you have any particular thoughts on that whole thing? Like, what needs to happen here? Does the sport need to change to different equipment? Do we need sound barriers? Do we need everyone to just suck it up? Like, what do you think?
That's a great question. It's very interesting. It never really bothered me, that noise. I just found it, it's a ball hitting a paddle. Of course, it's going to make a little louder noise. It's a plastic ball hitting a carbon fiber paddle. Sure, it's not going to be a quiet sound like a felt tennis ball hitting tennis strings. It's going to be louder. So I always accepted that. But my mom, for example, who has very fine musical hearing, it bothered her immensely when she first heard that. And I was like, okay, I guess it's a little louder. But other people are really ticked off by the noise. I remember when we were at Bonita Bay, they had some community courts and houses right by the community courts, and they had to do sound studies to show the decibel level of the ball hitting the paddle, and they had to lower the decibel level at certain hours of the day, and then they had to start using quiet paddles. It was a war. So Now they've come out with quiet paddles like the Owl paddle. I believe it's a Canadian company. It's not a high performance paddle, but it almost feels the surface of the paddle almost feels like carpet, and it's more meant for the beginners, but it's very quiet. I heard it the other day in Fort Lauderdale, and more companies are building quiet equipment now. For example, there's a company called Whisper Paddle. They're coming out with a adhesive material that you can attach to your paddle to dampen the noise. So, I mean, there are companies now out there that are aware that the noise is a problem. But we will see if that's really going to be a growth problem for pickleball down the road, or if it's just going to be accepted that pickleball will always be louder than other sports. I think some HOAs, they would welcome these quiet paddles quite a bit, because if you have a condo, if you live in a condo and right next to the pickleball courts, everybody's required to use quiet paddles as opposed to the normal paddles. I think a lot of condo owners would appreciate that.
Have you used the equipment that does reduce the noise? I guess you're giving up performance for a quieter option, but do you think that realistically that will be a change that players make or want to make?
No, they wouldn't want to make it, especially the tournament players.
Yeah.
They just want the best performing paddle. So they will only play with what gives them the best performance. So unless it's tournament approved by USA Pickleball and by the Pro Tours, PPA, APP, I don't see these quiet paddles making it on the market. I do see them making it, maybe be sold on Amazon as a starter paddle. But not more than that at this point, unless a paddle company makes it USA Pickleball approved and tournament approved, then it will break through. I have not played with a quiet paddle yet, like the Owl paddle or the Whisper paddle, but I am going to try them and see if they give give me more power or more control, and I'll report back to them.
Yeah, I think it's important. I do think it's really important, actually, for the sport to figure this out, especially with all the lawsuits that you hear about. I saw this thing. I don't know if it's true or not. I need to research that in Nantucket, they're thinking about banning pickleball, which is like insane to me, but it really does bother.
Because of the noise?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane, right? But it really is a problem for some people, especially, I guess, home is close to the courts and they're hearing it all day long. It's really bothersome. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be important for the sport to figure that out. And like you were saying, I don't think players will be willing to use equipment unless it's what's approved by the organizations and the professional tour. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see where all that goes. Yeah.
But there are so many changes happening in the pickleball industry right now, and they will make any change that's necessary to keep the sport growing. It's like the Wild West of pickleball right now. There are 500 plus paddle companies. And I'm sure there are more.
Wow.
Yep, 500.
Yeah. There's definitely not that many racket companies, I don't think.
No, I think it started that way in tennis. And then now it's probably less than 10 big racket companies that are left over. But I think it started that way when tennis was still in the Wild West stage.
Wow. And then you shared with me that you're going to be doing a presentation at Racquet X, which, listening, anyone that is really passionate about racket sports, especially padel, I think makes a huge appearance at Racquet X. If you're really passionate about racket sports, I think that's definitely like the place to be. I went last year and I really enjoyed it. I mean, I was only there a day, but I thought it was fabulous. But anyway, you told me that you're doing a presentation there regarding why some pickleball clubs fail. Can you share with us maybe some of the cliff notes? Like, what do you think it comes down to?
Sure. So I recently worked at the Pickleball Club, which is an indoor facility in Lakewood Ranch, Florida, outside of Sarasota. And I've seen some mismanagement issues on several levels that I'm going to share with the audience. It all the way down from membership model. So, which membership model should you pick for your own facility? If let's say you want to own a facility and you're going to make it pickleball and paddle, which membership model should you use? Private or a hybrid of both, or public? I'm going to go over that. Why the Pickleball Club failed its members with its membership model. Then it comes down to ownership involvement. How involved should owners of a club be? Should they be working owners, or should they put themselves out of it and let the people they hire do the job? I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about budgeting. What kind of operational budget do you need? Staff to hire? What's overkill? What's too much? Equipment for your indoor pickleball club. Courts. I'm going to go over what all the things that led to the demise of the pickleball club, and give current and future owners lessons on what not to do.
All right. How long is this presentation going to be? Sounds like that's like a full course.
Yeah. It's good. It's scheduled for an hour, but I'm sure we'll be talking long after that in private conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so interesting. Again, it's that whole thing of proof of concept, right? It's like, let's get one facility, get it really going, and just learn from that facility. But I think these are important conversations nonetheless to have, because you definitely want to avoid any of those issues if you can. Thank you for providing your perspective on these hot topics, or hot pickable topics. Now you're into paddle as well. What attracts you to paddle? Do you see yourself teaching the sport and using this as an asset in your career?
Paddle, I was first exposed to paddle by Marcos del Pilar, who is the biggest advocate of paddle in the United States. And I was certified to be by him, at the level 1 stage in Orlando, to be a paddle pro. And recently they built a 4-court facility here in Sarasota called the Pad, with 4 indoor paddle courts. And I went over there and played and fell in love with it. Mm-hmm. I don't know why, but it's just thrilling to be able to hit full volleys and step into the volleys, and also learn the concept of hitting off the walls. I've never played racquetball, so hitting the ball off the wall, of the side wall and the back wall, and taking into account the geometry of the bounces is extremely challenging. And it's, at first I whiffed the ball. And I'm a tennis player, and at first, yes, you feel like an idiot playing this sport and you feel humbled. Yes. And, but then I took lessons from a pro here. His name is Angel Davila. He's a very good pro in Sarasota, and he's at Palmere Country Club. And I took 10 lessons from him. And the last 2 lessons were really the breakthrough lessons for me, because I finally understood where to stand on certain bounces off the side and back wall. And it's, I mean, every time I play, I have another breakthrough moment, and I love it. It's, I think, something everybody should try.
I think it's really fun too. I enjoy playing it. And I think, paddle is growing much slower, at least here in the US, which I actually think it's probably the better way to go, because, you can learn again, right? Like build one facility, grow it, and then go on to the next. And I think paddle is doing that. And I think that's definitely a smarter way to go. Are you currently teaching paddle, or are you going to?
I'm not currently teaching, no. If there was an opportunity for me to do so, I'd be happy to teach paddle. I love it.
So are you teaching mostly tennis or mostly pickleball?
I'm teaching tennis and pickleball, yes. And I love teaching both the same. It's great to have a variety of both.
Yeah. I always ask a couple questions to all our guests. One is, any changes that you want to see in the industry. Obviously, we've touched on many, but any particular change you'd love to see in the industry that perhaps we haven't talked about?
Yes. So this is for the pickleball industry. They have to be very careful not to shoot themselves in the foot with a fast growth. And the 500 paddle companies out there right now vying for the top spot, because as we all know, any sport depends on TV viewership, how big they are on TV. Do people want to watch it on TV? For example, tennis has a huge TV viewership and will always have it, in my opinion, because the points are so exciting to watch in singles.
Yeah.
In pickleball, though, the problem is that not many people like to watch it on TV. I mean, if you tune into a live stream, there are not more than 5,000 people watching it, and even the top matches. And there are good commentators, very knowledgeable commentators. There are advertisers, but I just don't know how long that's going to last, because people don't like to watch the dinking too much. They like to see fast and exciting points. And unfortunately, in men's pickleball right now, there's a lot of dinking, because the first person to speed up the ball will most likely lose the point, because it comes back in your face even faster than you hit it. That's because the paddles are so incredibly powerful. And the women play the sport a little differently. They sit back off the kitchen line a little bit more. They can reset those balls and start over. The men, they're so close to the kitchen line, and they dink, 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 dink till somebody really pops it up, and then it gets put away. But nobody wants to watch that on TV. And now they might have to dial back the power of the paddles again for the men, so that the points are more exciting. So I'm urging them to. I mean, there was a discussion out there the other day. Maybe they should go back to wood paddles, do like a paddle tournament, a pickleball tournament where they use wooden paddles, just so everyone has the same paddle. Let's see who's the best player. So that's one change we need to see in the pickleball industry, so that it's here to stay. and then it's going to grow that more people want to watch it on TV.
Yeah, because that's definitely in the nature of the sport, is to take away the power, like even the rules, right? Like there's no overhead motion on the serve, you can't step past the kitchen line, right? Like all the rules are centered around the concept of taking power away from determining the game, right? As much as possible. So you would think like, yeah, it would be the same with equipment.
Right. Yeah.
I don't watch pickleball or even padel. I don't know. With padel, to me, it's like, it is fun to play, but to watch, it's like the points are too long. So it's like, oh my gosh, like a set can take like an hour and a half. I don't know. It's like so long. Everyone has their own thing that they like to watch. That's just me, I think. Maybe. I don't know.
I like to watch it to learn strategy. Recently, I played in the Pan Am Championships in Argentina, and I had to watch to prepare myself and use the right strategy. So I watched a lot of padel matches. The lob is a huge factor in padel. Getting an accurate deep lob that doesn't bounce too high, it's so challenging to do that. And you want to use a lot of backspin to deaden the ball in the corners. But it cannot bounce too high either. So you have to hit it just softly enough with a lot of backspin. Because if it bounces too high, the really good opponents are going to smash it right back in your face. So it's extremely challenging, that part, especially the Argentinians and the Brazilians and the Mexicans did that to us at the Pan American Championships.
Yeah, that's really funny. Before we let you go, you can share your Grand Slam moment and double bagel moment of your career.
Let me start with the double bagel moment. That was a humbling moment, let me tell you that. So when the I don't remember the name, maybe the 2022, I was supposed to be drafted for Major League Pickleball. So Major League Pickleball is a pro tour, just like PPA and APP, and it's a team format. So you play with 2 women and 2 men, and there's a team owner who drafts you. I'm sure you've heard of it. LeBron James owns a team, and the quarterback for the Saints, can't remember his name now, but a lot of celebrities own pickleball teams. And anyway, I was supposed to be drafted for the challenger level, which is the lower level of MLP. And they told me, be on standby during the draft, and you're going to get a call. Well, I was on standby for the call for the draft, and I was waiting and waiting. Nobody called. And I felt like a complete idiot. I've never felt so, like picked up, not picked up by your prom date, kind of thing. I was like, what the hell happened? My duper rating was high, 5.5. I mean, that's a good duper rating compared to the other ones. And I was like, whoa, what? And my friends got drafted that I play with, and I was like, whoa, that's a humbling moment. And I guess I'm not meant to play pro pickleball. And really, after that, I said, you know what? I'm not going to play these tournaments anymore. I'm just going to really focus on being a director and do well at my job. And I did. I really dug in and did an incredible job at Esplanade, where I was the director. And I even prepared myself for the draft. But the problem was that I didn't have a double-handed backhand at that time in pickleball. So I only had a one-handed backhand. And if you're a woman in pro pickleball and you don't have a double-handed counter attack, there's no way you're going to make it. So I learned that and taught myself a double-handed counter attack, taught myself more variety on my dinks, to mix in slice dinks with topspin dinks, and taught myself to be better on the right side, which you have to be if you're going to be a strong player in mixed doubles, and really watch the top women how to be unattackable. You have to learn to slide out of the way. If they attack your body, you slide out of the way and hammer it back with a double-handed backhand. And I learned all that. I had to push myself to another level just to still be competitive in pro tournaments. And I had not done that if I hadn't been picked or if I hadn't been stood up in the draft. So that was a double bagel moment that helped me get to a higher level, but it was so humiliating.
Well, no, I mean, that's how it goes, right? With these double bagel moments, they're learning opportunities that don't necessarily feel great in the moment, but you always bounce back. So thank you for sharing. And what about a Grand Slam moment?
Grand Slam moment was most recently competing for Team USA in the Pan American Championships in Argentina. So I was on the 35 plus team in padel. And the way this happened was I played a tournament in Sarasota at the indoor club. And at that tournament, I was recruited by a Team USA player who played against me and said, hey, are you interested in playing and representing Team USA at the Pan American Championships in Argentina? If so, I'll give you the contact of the coach and he can come and watch you play and maybe you'll make it. I said, yes. And it happened. And a month and a half later, I was on a plane to Argentina. I've never been to South America. And I was wearing my Team USA gear and playing in these indoor facilities in Mar del Plata, Argentina, and met an incredible cast of characters on Team USA that I would never have met without padel. So that was my Grand Slam moment. We didn't advance, and we advanced to the quarterfinals and lost to Brazil in the quarterfinals, but that part didn't matter. Just making connections to all these new people that I met from all over the world and learning a new sport and being able to compete at this level I think that was my Grand Slam moment.
Yeah.
Of my career.
I think that's such an important message to tennis professionals, right? It's like, well, what's the deal with these racket sports, right? It's like, and I've been there too, where like moments where maybe I get annoyed where it's like, I care about tennis, I'm a tennis person, tennis. And in my heart, I am. But as a tennis professional, you have all these skills and abilities that so easily transfer to pickleball, padel, whatever other racket sport, right? They're the main ones right now. But you have all these like skills that you already have that can propel you in your career, that can help you, that can bring amazing opportunities like it just did for you. Like, you went to Argentina to representing USA. Like, that's amazing. What an opportunity you got simply because of the fact that you open yourself up to learning another sport, right? I think that's an important message for people to hear. Learning all these rackets where it really can bring so much to your life and your career. So thank you so much for sharing. And then any other parting messages or, if you want to share, how can people find you if they want to reach out to you before we go?
Well, first, I want to thank you Jennifer, for this podcast. I find it extremely educational. And I drove to Fort Lauderdale the other day to play a pickleball tournament and listen to 4 or 5 episodes of your podcast, and I learned so much. So thank you for doing that. We need more women like you in our industry. Intelligent conversation, pushing the industry forward. I love that.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. And if people want to reach out to me, they are welcome to email me at my email address. So it's first initial D and then my last name Lemperle at gmail.com. And they can ask me anything about tennis, pickleball, or padel.
Awesome. And I know you're also considering some summer teaching positions. So if you're out there, you're at a seasonal club, make sure you reach out to Dominique because she's considering some summer positions. So get on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was a huge pleasure being here. Yeah. Thanks, Jen. See you soon.
Thanks, Dominique, for being awesome. And thank you guys for listening and keeping an open mind. Keep the conversation going. We can all work together and make tennis and pickleball and padel and all the racket sports a bigger success without imposing on the others. But we have to be willing to hear each other out. So thanks for listening. If you want to reach out to me, please visit vidatennispodcast.com or simply email me at vidatennispodcast@gmail.com. I will see you next week for a conversation with Alex Chang, who is a super fun creator on Instagram. Start following him now if you don't already, so you can get familiar with him and his account. He's got the funniest videos. All right, see you next time.